You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 165. Stay tuned. Welcome to Beyond the High Road, a podcast dedicated to healing your heart and life following the grief of alienation. I'm your host, Shelby Milford, a twice certified life coach specializing in post-traumatic growth. If you're experiencing the effects of alienation and you're ready to heal, then this show is my love letter to you. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. How are we doing today? So, as I'm recording this and when this will be released, it is Thanksgiving week in the USA. And I'm very aware that we have listeners, like, I think in 96 countries or something like that. So, I know that many of you don't celebrate Thanksgiving. When I refer to the holidays or holiday season, if that is not you, like if you don't identify with what I'm talking about, make it yours. Now I'm going to go into my little spiel that I've already written down. If you're an alienated parent or even an estranged parent, and you're already feeling that familiar knot in your stomach when you think about the holidays, this one is for you. This season that's supposed to be cozy and magical can honestly feel like punishment when you're shut out of your kids' lives or living on someone else's visitation schedule. In today's episode, we're going to name what's actually happening inside of you. As the title suggests, it's 6 different parts. So we're going to be talking about the constant dread and impending doom that you might be feeling. We're going to talk about the brain patterning and like your neural map that is likely still programmed to expect your kids or expect the old holiday traditions to still be intact. Then we're going to talk about no one understands me and the pressure that you might feel. In fact, all of these are kind of pressury, but we really get into it when we go into the cultural shoulds and shouldn'ts, how things should be, how you should feel, what should be happening with your kids, maybe the grandparents, whatever their story is about your kids' absence, if it's a full absence, or how they're behaving. And then we're going to talk about the always and never stories that you might tell yourself, these rules that you put on holiday periods and life in general. And then we're going to talk about when we feel pressured into gratitude. And then we're going to talk about happiness versus aliveness. Those are the 6 areas. And of course, with those, I'm going to give what you can do instead. So if you have been wondering, why can't I just handle the holidays like everyone else? Just know right now, up front, as you've probably heard me say a million times over, nothing is wrong with you, okay? Your reaction makes complete sense in light of what you lived through. And in this episode, I'm going to hopefully provide some language, some validation, and a few doable steps for getting through this season on your own terms. So the idea is you stepping into your power throughout all of these trials, tribulations, challenges, however you want to put it. Okay. So I'm just going to go right into it. So number one of the reasons why holidays suck as an alienated parent is that we have this idea, many of us anyway, and obviously, before I even start, sorry, I should have said already, that just because I've written this out, it's not limited to, it's not an exclusive, like this is the only reason why you can be miserable as an alienated parent. These are just 6 reasons that I came up with. And I don't know why I always come up with 6 and not 5 and not 4 and not 7. I don't know. I think it's just the length that is doable for y'all, for me, for a podcast episode. So anyway, it's not limited to what I've put here. And please do not allow me to tell you what your experience is. I know that you know that, but I feel like it's important for me to say that if you're a new listener. Just because I have these outlined here, these don't have to be your reasons. And actually, if you have different reasons that I do not outline here, come on, bring it on. Let me know. Email me. Shoot me an email at beyondthehighroad@gmail.com. Okay? Let me know what is the hardest part of the holidays for you. And I'll be glad to incorporate that into another episode. And that might actually, just right off the bat, that might help you to feel supported by writing out, not only supporting yourself by becoming aware of what makes this holiday season or holiday in general, or even just day, the hardest for you. By acknowledging that, that is a great step, a supportive, very supportive step for your own healing. But then also, then you're including me in that. You're putting that energy out into the world in a productive way, you know? And so it could lessen your feelings of isolation and loneliness and cause you to feel, again, more supported. Okay. So, number one, the idea is that history is going to repeat itself. This is what you might be thinking, which causes constant dread and impending doom. And it all feels like it's a fact that, like, because of what happened in the past, that now every holiday is going to be like this. And because the alienating parent did the one thing back then, they're probably going to do it again because in our minds, well, why wouldn't they? They've already stooped that low. This is who they are. And this is how they ruin holidays. And it is true. I think we can all vouch for the fact that the narcissist type person, when I say this to you guys, I don't really love addressing how they're behaving. And if you've listened to me for a while, you've heard me say that before because I don't know how helpful it is to talk about them so much. I mean, it's helpful maybe in the beginning. There's a purpose for it, but for this podcast, I usually don't do it. Anyway, the narcissist type person, it's one of their trademarks or one of their checklist textbook things is behaviors is they tend to ruin holidays. And I know that I can speak that from my past situations, not so much with the alienating parent with my daughter's father. Yes, after he had written me off and we had split up, right? Then he always wanted to ruin holidays. But also then in relationship with the last guy, he would do it when we were together. Like, and I thought things were going great. He would just blow up of holidays, of every holiday into the mix when things seemed to be going well. And it was like, to keep me on my toes. Anyway, not funny. Laughing now, I can look back at it and sort of see a dark humor in it, but it was not funny at the time at all. It was very unfunny when I was experiencing it. Anyway, my point is, of course, the days when I want to get this out, because I'm recording Thanksgiving week and there's a bunch of stuff to do. The days that I want to get things out is the days I feel like chatting happy. Anyway, in our brains, because we know that the person in your life, the other parent, historically likes to drop bombs on big days, then it can already feel like your brain is just going to start to expect that something's going to blow up, which let me just say right now that even when we're expecting the blow up, like if I was living my life, and in fact I did for many years throughout the alienation when my daughter was still home with me and I was sharing custody with, her dad where she was going back and forth, I got this sense of impending doom every year or any holiday because historically he would always blow shit up, like I was saying, right? Living like that, though, being in that constant dread caused me to shut down. I sort of imploded on myself, but then I wasn't able to enjoy my daughter when I did have her. And when I didn't have her and I was expecting her home, I wasn't able to enjoy those who I was around and even be in my own skin. I also then overthought any emails I was writing, and I would spend hours upon hours drafting emails to try to control whether he was going to drop her off on time or not. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was trying to do damage control by the way that I carefully worded things in order to trap him into not screwing with my time, which I can look back now and say, what a waste of my time, because he was going to do how he's going to do. Whatever I wrote was not going to change anything, especially the hours that I would put into the emails. But anyway, usually when we're on like in that hypervigilant place where we're like feeling the impending doom and dreading some sort of blow up, we end up ruining that much more of the holiday for ourselves. And in the end, whatever we're dreading we think it's really important to dread it because that's going to prepare us more, but actually it doesn't. I mean, in all the cases that I can think of and look back on my life and also with my clients, it always proves to be not productive and it ruins your experience. Okay. But the point I was going to make here is the human brain often classifies, just as I talked about in one of the recent episodes, uncertainty as danger, especially when something matters as much as your kids to you. So if this is your first or 10th holiday without them, your survival system might be on high alert, bracing for pain instead of magical moments. You know? It makes sense if you're here and if you're feeling this impending doom but not really sure why, but you feel like it's almost required of you to feel that, like it feels useful to you, but you also don't know why. Just know that nothing catastrophic has to be happening right now in this moment for your body to feel like something terrible is coming. Like emotional reasoning, where we're like, I feel this way, therefore something is bound to happen. Right? I'm feeling the pit in my stomach. That must be signaling me that something bad's going to happen. And now we have, yes, we are capable of intuition, but when we're in stress response, more often than not, this is not intuition talking to you. Not that there's anything, it's okay if it's there, but just also maybe to talk yourself down off the ledge. Like, I know I feel this way, but it doesn't mean that something's going to happen. This isn't the forecast for the outcome. So what I offered here is to name the threat that your brain is predicting. I'm afraid I'll feel unbearable pain all day if you're going like to a Thanksgiving. And maybe you're going where there's other kids or where maybe friends that when you spend time with them, your kids are usually around. And now this year, they're not going to be. So you might be super fearful around the pain that you might feel. Or this is such a common one too, is the floodgates are going to open and it's never going to stop. I'm going to start crying and it's going to be uncontrollable and it's going to be miserable and I'm going to make everybody else miserable. Or maybe it's like I was just talking about, I'm afraid that they're going to not show up with my kiddo in time and they're going to make my vacation not doable. Like this happened for me one time where living back in Austin, and my ex knew when the date was that she was supposed to be back to me because we'd been emailing back and forth about it. But instead, he decided to unknow and they went out of town. He was like, oh, well, it's out of my control. We're out of town. We're in Dallas or wherever he was. And we had plane tickets paid for, non-refundable, I think, to leave to come down to Miami and to go down to the Keys to see my dad. I don't know if we missed that vacation or if we had to change and pay for the tickets again. I forget what happened there, but I turned myself into a hot mess of a wreck for the 3 days when she was supposed to be here. Now, of course, it makes sense if this is you that you would have some emotions, but I know that I would tell this version of me would comfort the old version of me by letting her know that the 3 days is going to be like, I can't even remember what happened with that vacation now. Like I forget, I don't even know how that worked out, you know? So it's not going to last forever. There are going to be more vacations, is what I'm saying. There's going to be other opportunities. Making yourself sick to your stomach is only ruining your own experience of it. I mean, it also makes sense. I want to give you room to have your emotions. But you know, too, if you've listened to any of the episodes before, there's a way that we activate ourselves more by the way that we're thinking about it. Like this is the end all be all. We contribute to our own nervous system activation by buying into the story that it's life or death when we know it's not. This too shall pass. I mean, they can't stay going forever. They're going to come home. But it does feel like life or death in the moment. But it's not. So like I said, nothing terrible has to be happening today for your body to feel like something terrible is about to happen. That's your nervous system trying to protect you from an unplanned, unmapped, painful day. So name the threat that your brain is predicting, like I was starting to say. Name the threat, whatever it is, and then name 3 concrete safeties in this moment. And my words to you would be that make them related, right? Like if you're fearful that I'm going to pick them not showing up on time for your parenting time, right? They they're late by a day, by hours, whatever it is. You're fearing that on the forefront, like this is going to go badly and I'm not going to take my vacation. When you go to name the 3 concrete safeties, make at least one of those be around what your brain is fearing. So they may not show up. Relating that to my example would be, no matter what, I am going to be okay. On the end of this vacation time, I will make it up, right? Like if they're one day late, I will keep her one day longer. There are ways to remedy the situation so that all the time isn't lost. However it is that you make that up, it's not life or death. And I can create peace now while I'm waiting for them to come, show up with my kiddo. Make it yours. Okay. And then the other 3 you could do, like I was talking about last week or the week before, like you can just ground yourself in the moment. Like I am safe and supported right here as I sit with a roof over my head and the floor underneath me. I have food in the fridge. I am safe. Things are okay. I have plans with some friends or family. However, but create safety, really lean into the ways that you are safe currently instead of leaning into the danger and impending doom. Number 2 is you are flooded with memories of what was, right? Like last Christmas, the Christmas before, Christmases used to be, or holidays, sorry. You're comparing the current state to what it was before, and it feels foreign to you. And so just remember that your brain is wired for predictability, 1, and for attachment, 2. Holidays are loaded with both, expectations for both. Okay? Holidays are loaded with needing, wanting, expecting predictable circumstances and traditions, routines. Every Thanksgiving for me, I used to, from the time I was a kid until, alienation happened, really, I knew what Thanksgiving was going to look like. I had a very traditional, classic idea in my mind of what was going to happen. As a kid, we would go to my grandmother's house every year, or drive up the 4 hours to go see her through the mountains. And I knew I was going to see the leaves changing and I was going to get there and we were going to have turkey and play with my granddad out in the backyard. There was just, certain activities that I always expected, no matter how old I was. And then I got into my adult years, and regardless of where I was, I knew I was going to have turkey and sweet potatoes and whatever. That tradition felt safe. And so when we don't have that, we start to feel unsafe. And then we, of course, start craving what we did have. So that makes sense, right? But also, the holidays are loaded with this idea of closeness, attachment, families, love, magic, like all the ooey gooey lovely feelings, soft, warm lighting, and goodness. Ideas of sugar plums and whatever, In traumatic or ambiguous sort of grief, your brain has had years of wiring that said, this state equals kids here, these sounds, these routines. That's what you equate with the world is right. On this day, on this holiday, here's what happens. And when those routines aren't being done, or there's no sign of them coming, there's no planning for them or whatever, your brain starts to go into freak out. I did an episode about this a while back, but we become hardwired with routines like the brain does. It starts to develop expectations and rule sets for what happens when. And when that neural map, like your brain's map, does not update for you, and it takes a long time for that to actually happen, like after your kids leave and you're still expecting them to walk through the door, you're still expecting them to be around for Christmas, or sometimes you still hear noises in the house and you feel like it's them. Your brain may still have those expectations and routines set up in there no matter how long it's been. Like, it's similar to if you've ever had a loved one, here I go again comparing death to alienation, but loved one pass away, someone that lived with you pass away, or animal, a dog, a pet, cat, whatever. And every so often you see like a blur of something and it seems like them walking by, but you know it couldn't be them because they died a year ago or something. Y'all, I still have this with Nita, my pig, Carnita. I still have this. I was out in my yard. I mean, well, first off, I couldn't even go out to my yard. My yard turned to shit in the well, she died, it was 2 years ago in October 26th. And for a full year and a half, I really couldn't go out in my yard for more than 5 minutes without bursting into tears because I just always expected her there. Even though she lived inside with me, well, we spent a lot of time outside. But anyway, a few days ago, I was outside and I saw something black right where she used to always hang out. And I thought it was her. And like for a second, my heart leaped. I was like walking over there. Like I started to walk over and I was like, that's not Nita. Nita's not alive. And it had been 2 years. This is actually like making me emotional right now, just thinking about it. Like the idea that she could still be alive. So listen, guys, this was my pig, who, by the way, I loved dearly. But anyway, your brain has been hardwired with all of these different routines and expectations for holidays, for really all the days, right? Depending on, like I said, where you're at in your grief. And it's not a linear process or journey. It's sort of cyclical. So it doesn't matter how long it's been in between. It could just be, there are like pockets. I kind of think of grief hiding in pockets inside of our body or just in trauma, same way. And sometimes when we shift, when we move, those pockets sort of open up, and at the right time, the right moment, when we're already feeling safe, or when we've processed through enough, something else will pop up and be like, okay, we're ready. We feel safe enough to process this now. And so more reminders will come up. I hope I'm making sense there. The whole point of this is it's not only the emotional part of you that is going through this whole grief. It's actually too, your brain it's like a switchboard up there, like a circuit board that has these expectations wired in. So if some part of you keeps listening for the door, checking your phone, or expecting for the holidays to turn out like they once were, even though it's not rational, in your brain there may be some sort of low grade, or maybe not even low grade, but disappointment or grief around the fact that the holidays aren't the same as they once were. There's nothing wrong with you, and you are not crazy. This is the evidence or the signs of a loving brain in pain, still looking for the person it's wired to expect. Number 3 is the idea that nobody understands you. Okay. You feel like around the holidays, the idea is I'm going to have to go somewhere and have all these reminders that other people have it quote unquote better. And not only that, it's going to amplify this idea that nobody understands what you're going through. Okay. So they have it different. They have it better. I want what they have because I want my kid back, and that's better. Right. And then it's also going to sort of throw in your face, or it feels like it's being thrown in your face, that there's this huge disconnect because nothing's been ruined in their lives, and look at mine. So of course, I'm out on an island and nobody can understand my pain or my experience. You're carrying this disenfranchised grief, this kind of grief that we all as alienated parents experience. When I just made that absolute statement, I think so. The majority of us, I can't really think of an alienated parent who doesn't experience some degree of disenfranchised grief, which is crazy because disenfranchised grief, when I learned about, and I'll give you a quick definition in a minute. But when I heard this term, I can remember where I was living in the house in the hill. And it was right during that time that I already knew that I wanted to help other alienated parents. And I knew that for a few years, right? Because I never wanted anybody else to feel alone, isolated, miserable, left out in the dark, not knowing what to do or where to go or what was right. Or if anybody else had the same experience as me, all that. I never wanted anybody else to feel like that again. ever feel ostracized, criticized, all the things that we experience as alienated parents. So that was a couple years before. But then on my own healing journey, when I was getting myself ready to be able to help other alienated parents, I needed to help myself first. Two healing terms came into my world right around the same time. One of them was disenfranchised grief, and the other one was post-traumatic growth. These two terms, these two concepts, opened my whole world up. And I remember being on a coaching call, like a call back in the day, like not Zoom, but like a phone call. And I was walking my dogs and somebody said disenfranchised grief. And I was like, I mean, as I was walking them, I stood up even straighter. And I was like, what are they talking about? What's disenfranchised grief? What is this? I need to know everything about it. And so I remember rushing home and Googling everything I could find about it. And back then, I mean, now there's a lot more stuff out there about it, but there wasn't back then. But when I was doing the research, I found out, I did a whole episode on this, but I found out all the facts and in which kind of cases that disenfranchised grief could be applied or felt. There were lots of different examples. The one that wasn't there was us. And I was like, but this has to be us too. It's like written all over our whole experience because nobody really knows how to relate with us. As you guys know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but also it's not even like the people that honestly, genuinely love us and want to know how to relate to us. It's not their fault. It's not intentional, right? But then also there's this idea. So there's like for regular loving relationships of yours, you may experience disenfranchised grief with, so it's sort of like a secondary sort of grief or loss. Like, so you suffering this loss of your kiddo, even though they're still here on the planet, but then also you're suffering this loss of connection, real connection, genuine connection with those that you really love and once felt connected to with, right? So it's like, it is a secondary loss. Also, alienation as a whole can feel really threatening to a lot of other people in general. And so talking about your experience can sometimes cause the other people to either want to deny your experience because they're scared either that one, it will happen to them, or two, it threatens their whole belief system about what is right and true of a good parent. Okay. And so you may get some pushback or some backlash, judgment, and all the things. And this is also a form of disenfranchised grief. Okay. So along with other experiences there, right? Maybe you might feel judged, betrayed, and all the things. So I know that this is a lot, an earful, but hopefully it all makes sense. In fact, I'm really going off my notes today, and today's the one day that I wanted to stick on my notes, but it is what it is. In simple terms, disenfranchised grief is real grief that doesn't get recognized, validated, or supported by the people around you, whether that's intentional or unintentional. It's the kind of grief that doesn't get you casseroles, it doesn't get you sympathy cards, and sometimes even gets questioned or minimized. Of course, as you know, our children are alive, but our relationships are blocked, distorted, out of reach, or whatever, and society doesn't really know what to do with that type of loss. It's not up to them to do anything with that type of loss, but they don't know how to support this kind of loss. So you end up navigating birthdays, holidays, school breaks, and even family events, experiencing a level of pain that would make sense if your child had died, but because they haven't, it's like your grief doesn't qualify for the same care. Okay? That mismatch can create this awful double layer that I was just kind of referring to. You're already grieving the absence, and then you feel weird or too much for even being as sad as you are. Like I said, if you want to learn more about disenfranchised grief when it comes to us as alienated parents, I will link the episode that I did last year or the year before on that. It was like the spring of maybe 23, I think. I don't know. Like I said, I'll link it below. I won't forget. Okay, so this kind of grief often leads to more isolation, more shame, more self-doubt, and difficulty accessing social or professional support because there are no clear rituals or rules for us as the grievers. There is no protocol for when a parent gets alienated. But sure as shit, you know that a honey baked ham is coming to the person that lost their spouse or their child. You know that there's the team of like the welcome wagon that comes in, the HOA, all of your neighbors that come in, the same thing when somebody passes away. Or I think, is it called Shiva in Judaism? When there's like the 7-day period when somebody dies, right? There's a mourning period. The whole family comes and sits to process, which I think is such a freaking amazing idea, tradition, way of life, actually. We don't have any of those for alienated parents. So yeah, disenfranchised, unsupported grief is something that we absolutely experience, especially during the holidays. Because we're going to go over to our own parents' houses or wherever it is that you're going, and they're celebrating everything like it's normal. So it feels like though they're experiencing loss, if it's your parents or close family of yours, it's not the same as you, right? And so this whole idea that the world is going on being happy and we are not can feel more isolating and way less supportive around the holidays that you once thought magical. If this is you, if you're dreading the holidays because you feel like you don't have anybody around you that understands or supports what you're going through, just know that number one, that you are not being dramatic for being in pain, for hurting as much as you are. Okay? There's nothing wrong with where you are. This is grief. I want to help you to not make excuses for it. I also want to help you to not use it as an excuse, but to not make excuses for where you are, really, is the point here. 2, you are not broken for still feeling it, even if it's years later. Okay? I know most of you know this, but really, when we're in it, the reminders are always really helpful. Because oftentimes what will happen is we start turning it all internal because we already feel separated and isolated from them. So we want to blame them, and we will sometimes, but then it goes back to us, like we start gaslighting ourselves. We'll be like, well, what's wrong with me? Maybe it's my fault. How come I can't just accept the holiday for what it is and have fun with everybody else that's having fun, right? I'm going to get into that in a minute. But also, you are not disloyal or ungrateful because the holidays are hard and difficult for you at this moment. And when I just said that, the holidays aren't factual hard, okay, or difficult. It just right now you might be experiencing them that way, and that can be okay if you want to let it be okay. I will tell you, coming off of the episodes of just recent, that resisting whatever you're feeling in the moment is only going to add to the difficulty. Okay? So the absence that you're feeling is a real loss, even if the world doesn't have a card category, which, by the way, would be a freaking fantabulous business idea for one of you out there that is looking to get into something to support alienated parents. Make a greeting card business for alienated parents or for bereavement. Okay, you don't have to just label it just all for, I don't know, you do what you want to do. But I was thinking about this when I was doing this outline, writing out this outline earlier. I was like, greeting cards for the alienated parent would be, not for the alienating parent, but for the alienated parent would be so, it would just be amazing, life-changing for so many of us, Anyway, but the world doesn't have that yet. We're not there yet. Hopefully, with the awareness that we're bringing out there, that we will have that. Hopefully there won't be a need for it going further, but the more that we bring it out into the open, the more that we support each other, the more support there will be out there, the more normalized it is, right? There's also not a neat label, like a black, white label for what is happening with us. It's very ambiguous. There's lots of context to add into these nice little neat boxes or rules that everybody likes to label things as. So it's not some cut and dry marketable experience that we have. God, nobody wants to market this, but you know what I'm saying. If nobody around you is naming this as grief, it's very easy to start gaslighting yourself, to wonder if you're just being negative or maybe you're just stuck, You make it as it's something that's your fault, but you're not. You're responding like a human to an ongoing, ambiguous, deeply misunderstood loss. Okay? I want to say that again. You are responding like a human with a brain that was designed to behave exactly how yours is to an ongoing, ambiguous, and deeply misunderstood loss and subsequent grief. Okay? It makes sense. All of it. If you notice yourself thinking that you should be over this, or that you don't have a right to be this upset, or like everybody else is having fun and you're not, try pausing and saying, of course I feel this way. This is grief. Even if nobody else sees it, I'm going to honor this. It's okay that I feel this way. And it's not that it's self-pity that you're doing that. You don't have to go into self-pity. Self-pity would be like, I feel this way and nobody cares about me, right? Eeyore. Like there's nothing's going to change and life is going to be blah, 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 right? This is just you acknowledging and honoring where you are, okay? That's you finally giving your nervous system the acknowledgement it's probably been starting for, especially coming from disenfranchised grief. Okay, what to do? If you are planning on going to a get-together, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, whenever you're listening to this, birthday dinner, whatever, you're planning on being around people. If you need to give yourself a 5-minute break or a 20-minute break even, and go take a walk and have some you time to honor your experience so that you're not projecting that or putting that on everybody else who's not having your experience, do that. But use that time. I want to always say, use that time to support you and lift you up and not pigeonhole you, put you in a box and make you feel separate and on an island from them. Especially if you're wanting to feel closeness. If you want to feel separate, then fine, do your thing. But the walk, you could actually use that as a way to isolate yourself further or connect yourself, like plug into yourself, and therefore that will equip you to go plug back in with them. Does that make sense? Also, make a ritual for yourself. If you're missing the rituals that you had with your kiddos, then maybe make a new ritual for you. Whether that's about your kids or just you celebrate you moving forward and how you're going to do things, how you're going to define holidays moving forward, support you, since you're the idea with disenfranchised grief that there are no methods of support like protocols for what you do, then you'll make those protocols. Okay? All right. All right. The rest of them, 4, 5, and 6, I classified these as pressure. Like it would make sense when we think about holidays, why we feel dread. I think anyway, because of these. We had these cultural shoulds and shouldn'ts rules about the holidays in general. Holidays should always be magical. During the holidays, you should be surrounded by loved ones. Holidays shouldn't be a time for intruders, i.e. the alienating parent. Holidays should be about love and happiness and magic. Puppy dog tails and unicorns. And those oftentimes cause all this unneeded pressure that adds to our pain, adds to our suffering. Some of the other scripts that we have is like, I shouldn't still be this upset. I should be over this right now. Things shouldn't still be this hard for me, this difficult for me. It's been years. How come things are still so hard? I used that script a lot, especially actually after, and it wasn't necessarily always around the holidays. I mean, it was. For me, I used the holidays as like a regrouping time. I went inward during the early healing days, but I used to tell myself all the time that like rebuilding my life financially, mentally, all the things shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard. There's something wrong with me. That one really fucked with me for a long time. And I'll tell you right now, this is a Byron Katie thing, and thank God that I somehow found her work early on, though it was radical work and I was sometimes offended by some of the stuff that she said. It also was life-changing because one of the things that I learned early on from her is like, when you fight reality, you lose but 100% of the time. And that when we tell ourselves that it should be this way, it's a lie, because how do we know things should be the way they are? Is because they are the way they are. They're already here, so we know they should be because it's here, So why are we going to try to fight what's already here? It makes no sense. It's like it's a boxing match up in your head. But I made it into and pressured my own self into believing that I should be further along than I was, and I shouldn't have so much trouble and might. So there was something I made it about. There was something wrong with my brain, that the trauma had caused so much damage to my brain that I didn't have a memory and that my processing was off and that everything was so clunky. And it took me 10,000 times longer than the rest of the world to get tasks done, especially like new tasks that I was learning. But that only added to my pain and suffering in the length of time and the difficulty of all of the tasks, because I was now then telling myself, faulting my own self for it, and faulting even the trauma and the whole situation. I would get super frustrated at that, which kept me in a holding pattern and had me not get done the things that I needed to get done. It's kind of this unhelpful way that we screw ourselves mentally, and it punish ourselves for where we are. But again, it's only going to hold you further back than you ever want to be. Anyway, yeah. So I shouldn't still be this upset. I should make the best of it. Oh yeah, that's another one. It's like, I should be making the best of this. I should be appreciating what is going on in there with the family, or I should look forward to the holidays. How come it's been this long and I can't even look forward to the holidays now? There's all these fucking stupid rules that will, no offense, but that we put on ourselves that make our experience that much worse, because we're comparing ourselves to whoever ideal out there, some romanticized idea about how things should look for us. But those are just like commercialized ideas a lot of times that have been sold to us, like we bought into, that rarely actually speak the truth of most people's realities. Usually those ideas they're like commercialized this way by corporations to sell whatever products they're selling, sell the idea of a cozy, lovely, magical holiday. There will be those experiences, but as you'll hear in just a little bit, in order to have those experiences, you also have to have the not so magical experiences, or else you wouldn't appreciate it when it was magical, and it wouldn't be magical then. Okay. The other kinds of rules or statements that we'll put on ourselves are always and never. My holidays will never be the same now that my kids are gone, or now that my kids aren't speaking to me. They'll never speak to me again. I will always feel this way about this whole situation, which makes your brain go, oh, we're always going to feel this way. Okay, we're going to look for the evidence to support how it's always going to be that way, which will cause you to like repeat and perpetuate, prolong your suffering, because your brain is going to work to try to prove your belief about how things are always going to be this way true, that accurate, valid. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't have to be. So how could the opposite be true? How is it up to me to decide? How can I define what this holiday is going to be for me? And I'll define the next holiday when I get there, So it doesn't let, if and when you hear yourself, if you're a black, white thinker, then the always and never are going to come up for you a lot, probably. Identify and acknowledge when that language comes up for you and question whether it's helpful for you or not. Is this statement helpful for me? How do I feel when I say this statement? So if the statement is like, I'll always be alone, ask yourself, how am I not alone right now? Consider how the opposite is true. I'm not saying to deny your current thought or belief about where you are, but just also say, okay, I hear you, brain, but how else could we think about this? How might somebody living a parallel life to me think about this? And think about somebody that you admire or you look up to, like a mentor in your life. How might they think about this? That is different from how I'm thinking about it. Not because you need to be there, but consider the alternative ideas. Okay. Another one is, good parents always call or visit their kids on the holidays, or they would call me if I was a good parent, if they believed that I was a good parent. Let those absolute statements go. There is so much context that each one of those statements actually deserves. Okay. Don't let those rule your life. Another one is, grandparents should always see kids open gifts, like if it's Christmas or birthdays or whatever. Kids should always call and thank or write and thank the grandparents. It's another one that's going to fuck you in the end. They shouldn't always do it. How do we know that they shouldn't always do it? Because it's not happening right now. Like with my daughter, My mom sends her gifts and my dad sends her gifts every holiday that comes around. And my daughter stopped sending thank you cards, like writing notes, few years ago. So obviously, it shouldn't always be the case because it's not the case in my daughter's situation. Would it be nice? Sure. I'm sure my parents would appreciate that greatly, but that doesn't mean that it should always happen. You hear me? Okay, it's just going to screw you in the end. That's why. So think about your shoulds or your always or whatever it is. List 3 of them or think of 3 of them in your mind that you have, either shoulds, shouldn't, always, never, absolute statements that you have. And then for each of those statements, consider where you picked this up, this belief up. Like, who told me this? When did I start believing that kids should always call on Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, right? Did you pick that up because it was just adopted? Likely, it was just adopted through what you've seen in the traditions and how most people celebrate it. When and where, why did you adopt whatever you're saying? And is it helpful now? What else might be helpful or more helpful in this situation? What else might feel more supportive of me now? More supportive of them now? What do I actually value here? Do I even care about this tradition or whatever the rule is on the traditions? Like if you're thinking everyone has somebody to celebrate with, is that helpful or is it not? Where did I get that idea from? Who told me that everyone has someone to celebrate with? Commercials on TV? Okay. So do I really want to believe that if this year I'm not celebrating with anybody? Because I promise you, like I can't even tell you how many years in a row and how many holidays, like individually, that I chose to spend by myself or I did just because of the circumstances by myself. And everybody knows, from like COVID and stuff. You can celebrate a holiday by yourself. It doesn't have to be celebrated with somebody else. And it doesn't mean you're miserable if you don't. Okay. Once you see all the rules for what they are, I can just create a little bit of breathing room for you, right? Like, where did I develop this? When did I start to believe this? Why did I start to believe this? Is this really back up my true values today? And do I want to carry that with me? Is it helpful? Do I feel supported by repeating this rule for myself? And then from there, the question becomes, given all this, my nervous system, my grief, and the reality of the situation, what is real for me, right? How do I want to define this holiday? Which will create a whole different kind of holiday for you, whole different kind of environment and just space for you. All right, number 5 is that you're surrounded by all these images of happy, intact families and may feel pressured into feeling gratitude, which of course can be a form of self-gaslighting when you're acutely grieving. And research links that to more shame and isolation, not less. When you're telling yourself you should be somewhere else or that you should be having an experience that you're not currently having, it pressures you to be performative with gratitude rather than actually feeling anything real, you know? So it can also compound your feelings of disconnection. If gratitude lists make you feel worse, doesn't mean that you're an ungrateful person. Hear me? You're probably trying to layer the I should be thankful on top of what may be unacknowledged pain, like unprocessed trauma wounds. I wanted to think about how I said that because I know that just last week I talked about there are no old wounds, but if they're still there and not healed yet, then you could be trying to slap on some sort of a happy face sticker on an area that actually needs some patience, kindness, nice stitching, and love. Listen, I know that I sell you all the time that I am even grateful for the terrible things that have happened. In fact, was last Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving before where I was talking about I'm even grateful for the alienating parent doing some of the things that he did because I now am in a place that I never would have gotten to had it not been for him being the words that are coming to me right now is a monster. Probably not helpful for you, but again, I probably won't edit it out because it's real, like how I was thinking back then, right? I know that I sell that to you, but I need to say this. And I don't know if I said it to you before, but I was thinking about this today when I was writing this. I'm not a gratitude list person when you're in pain, like acute pain. Because I believe, or not even just gratitude list, or pressuring yourself to feel something that you're not. Because I think that, like, if you're just starting on your healing journey and just starting to advocate for yourself in this way, in the way that I talk about in this podcast, trying to live up to this, what I was just talking about earlier, could do more harm than good for you. Okay? So please, please, please never think that I think or I'm trying to tell you, you should just be grateful. You should find the silver linings in everything and live into those and not acknowledge your pain. I am never saying that. I'm saying and. Always and. I'm in pain and I can advocate for myself and I'm going to find my power. I am finding my power. Whatever. It's never a replacement, something that you should just distract shiny objects. I'm in pain, but look over here. It's so pretty, like butterflies. Never. Okay? All right. And I just came off of saying always and never, but I really truly mean absolute here. I'm never going to tell you to just replace one with the other. Now that I say that, there is an instance when we're talking about, God, this is so long now. When we're talking about indulgent emotions, then yeah, I will tell you to replace if it's like a habitual thing and you've been indulgent about like overwhelm. Self-pity is another one. There's times where I will say, absolutely just think something different, because otherwise you're just going to sit in that and it's not doing you any good. It's just, it's not helpful all the way around. But anyway, that's for another episode. All right. So instead, what to do instead of I should feel grateful, I should be happy that I'm still even here, I should be happy that I have people to celebrate with, is another way we do this. And then I will say that attachment styles play into this. I feel like that if you're an anxiously attached person, then you will go to the I shoulds a lot quicker than maybe other attachment styles might. And you know that attachment styles aren't a fixed thing. They can shift over time with your self-advocacy. Okay, if you do want to feel some gratitude, renew your love for the things that you've started to take for granted. So you may not want to feel grateful about your situation or about how your ex is behaving or whoever is behaving in your life, and that is okay, you know? And which is always the helpful thing to say, I don't like what they're doing here, and I have things to be grateful for too. Okay? And those things are like, if you're like, I don't know what to feel grateful for right now because everything sucks, that's when you're telling yourself a lie, because not everything's at all times. Like nothing is ever that where everything sucks. There are things that I know that you can find that are good, that are working for you in your life, but you just may have to open your eyes and renew the contract that you have with those things in your life. Okay? So like, remember when you first moved into the place that you're living, if you liked it back then, if you felt that sense of newness and goodness about it, like, I love this place, it's better than the last place, or whatever you've said back then, like, go back to that place, that mental place, right? When you were there, remember what you loved then about the place you're living or your car, or it doesn't have to just be outside things. You can find gratitude in you on the inside for how willing you've been to show up for yourself over and over and over again, which we can take ourselves for granted. I mean, it's the one thing I think that we all do so much because we live with ourselves all the time. It's like kind of like when your kid was growing like actively, you don't really notice when they've gone through a growth spurt because you've been watching them grow the whole time. You've been there for the whole process, so it doesn't seem as shocking or as impactful. But if somebody else, you know, you're like your parents saw them after 4 months, then they grew. Oh my gosh, they shot up like a weed. Well, of course it's impactful for them. It's the same with you, like about like how far you've come, but you can have gratitude for yourself is where I'm going. I'm really talky today and I'm going so off of script or off of my outline. But anyway, so renew your mental contract with the things that you have in your life today. Maybe it's that you renew your gratitude that you once had for a partner or another relationship that you have in your life. Like, why did you really appreciate and love them and get all the happy, good feelings? Or like a parent or sister or brother, whoever. When is it that you really truly appreciate them and like feel overwhelmed with love? When was the last time and how can you renew that? Okay. And that can create a space of safety for you too. Renewing your emotional, mental investment in the things that are already in your life, which will cause you to go into less of a have not place and more into a prosperous place. That's when you can actually appreciate what you have right now, as opposed to wishing your life away and wishing you were up there. Things will be better when I get a better job, or I have more money, or I have savings in my account, or whatever you're saying there. Things will never get better because you're always going to be pushing the bar, up. And then we talked about this recently. But instead, how can I be so grateful, renew my thankfulness for what I have current? Not by gaslighting yourself, but by really finding the joy in those things. Okay. The last one is, listen, y'all, I think that we all, and I hear this from my clients all the time, we have this idea in our minds that happiness is the goal. We got to get to happy because that's what it should be about. I don't want to feel in pain anymore. And then we know that if we're talking about life being 50-50, we've been mostly experiencing, many of us anyway, depending on how long you've been here, especially in the acute beginning stages, are feeling the lower half of that 50% more often, of the emotion spectrum. We're feeling the neggy feelings a lot more. But just also know that most of those neggy emotions are appropriate given the situation. And that the goal, in my mind, ought not be happiness as where we're trying to hit for the rest of our lives, because happiness doesn't produce the results that you want in the end. Like, you're telling it's a lie. Oh, I want to just get to happy. I don't want to be experiencing loss, grief, sadness, all those things. But that is part of the human condition. Those emotions, all of the emotions, show us or evidence of our aliveness, of our humanness. So instead of happiness or togetherness being a measure of some sort of successful holiday or a successful life, successful venture for you, whatever, maybe instead shift your attention to, I'm feeling these emotions because I'm a human being. All of the emotions that I'm feeling are appropriate for where I'm at and the thoughts that I'm leaning into these days. And that is okay. If we want to produce a different result, we just have to start leaning into different thoughts so that those become beliefs. But right now, it's not about getting somewhere else or getting to happy. Happiness, I don't think, I want to say should never be the goal, but I just got done preaching to you about never and should. So you know what I'm saying though. Feeling sad, feeling angry, numb even, makes so many parents that I talk with think that they're failing instead of seeing those states as a normal part of being human in a painful situation or a challenging situation, however you want to say it. It makes sense, is all I'm saying. Don't tell yourself that happiness is the goal, please. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to tell you, but oh gosh, I gotta end this. You tell yourself whatever you want, but if you want to get to happy or feel okay, I haven't said this in a while, but I believe for me, happiness is this idea that we're on the path that feels right currently. Things are okay, and I'm headed where I want to go. But it makes sense right now, too, if something has just happened that you might be feeling like I was talking about early in the episode, where like, oh my gosh, everything's going wrong. Like, this isn't how it's supposed to be, which is also going to cause you the opposite of happy. But maybe instead, when you're feeling the sad, all the other emotions, this is evidence that I am a human. And I know that I can instead get good, master experiencing and allowing all the emotions, especially when I deem it appropriate for the situation at hand and for the beliefs that I have around the situation at hand. Give yourself permission to have all the emotions. You don't have to make the negative. I know this sounds so wordy and contradictory, but you don't have to make the negative emotions a negative experience. There's positive and negative, whatever, but it doesn't have to mean that you're going in the wrong direction because you're experiencing the negative emotion. It could just be what is. It doesn't have to ruin your holiday. It doesn't have to ruin your day. It could just be an emotion that's adding to the complexity in a good way, the texture and ooey goodness of a complete holiday. Because let's face it, folks, which holiday have you ever experienced that didn't have some negativity in it? Seriously, we're sold this idea, but there is some bickering, fighting, or like some sort of challenge in many of the best experiences and holidays. Okay? And then by the end, maybe hopefully you get through it and you can look back on whatever happened earlier and laugh and relax about the negativity. That to me is a complete holiday, especially when we add family into the mix. So anyway, that is all I have for you guys. Okay. Holidays don't need to be the pressure that we make of them. And this goes to every human on the face of the earth, but especially us experiencing this prolonged, ambiguous, intense, traumatic, disenfranchised form of grief, all the different forms of grief that many of us do experience. You can define each holiday for you moving forward based on your values and what feels helpful and most supportive for you today. Don't make it be about what it shouldn't be, what the Joneses think over there, what your parents think, what whoever. How do you want to make this now? And then you take the steps to support that agenda for yourself. Okay? All right, y'all. If you're here in the United States, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. If you're outside of the United States and this is not your holiday, then please, I extend that as for this coming week, and also for any holiday that might be coming up for you in the near future. Okay? I love you all, and I will see you next week. Okay. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.